Hello everybody and welcome back to The Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, The Lost Planeswalker, and today we're doing Rip Spawn Hunter. This is a very cool commander deck that focuses in around basically pulling vehicles and creatures from the top of your deck into your hand, and then there's some really interesting things we can do. So let's look at what Rip can do and kind of dive right in there. So Rip, first off, has the new keyword from Duskmourn, which is survival, which basically means at the beginning of your second main phase, if that creature is tapped, then you get an ability. In this case, we look at the top X cards of our library, equal to Rip's power, and then can put any number of creatures and or vehicles with different powers into our hand. This is a very cool way you can look at the top, put a ton of good stuff into your hand, and then be able to cast it. So this deck is going to revolve around vehicles being our first design layout. Secondly, we're going to look at creatures, and then we have some different ways that we can tap down our creatures, whether that's convoking or abilities of spells we have. And then finally, we're going to be looking at the good stuff in this deck.
So diving into those vehicles, I think we have some really cool vehicles here with Luxurious Locomotive, Parhelion 2, and Unidentified Hovership. The Luxurious Locomotive is 5 artifact vehicle. When it attacks, create a treasure token for each creature that crewed it this turn, and it only crews for 1. We're going to be able to make some additional treasures along with a big beater. The Parhelion 2, one of my favorite cards and is played in one of my favorite decks in Pioneer Greasefang, but 2 white legendary artifact vehicle with flying, first strike, vigilance, and whenever this attacks, create 2 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance that are attacking, and you may crew it for 4, which is exactly our commander's power, which is perfect. And then Unidentified Hovership, 1 white artifact vehicle with flying. When it enters, exile up to 1 target creature with toughness 5 or less. And then when Unidentified Hovership leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner manifests dread. This is a great way to remove some stuff and then not guarantee they get anything good back onto the battlefield. Some other really useful cards that we're going to be focusing around in this deck are Cultivator's Caravan, Flywheel Racer, and Peace Walker Colossus. Cultivator's Caravan and Flywheel Racer are very similar, and we're having them because they generate mana, meaning we can tap our creatures, including Rip, in order to get additional mana out of them. And then Peace Walker Colossus lets us crew our vehicles for only 1 in a white. This is a great way that we can cheaply crew with the mana we have because we are going to be generating a lot of mana in this deck. Some of the other vehicles we have here are Aerial Surveyor, Brotherhood Vertibird, Clown Car, Mech Titan Core, Nautiloid Ship, Reckoner Bankbuster, Sky Sovereign Council Flagship, Smuggler's Copter, Unlicensed Hearse, and Weatherlight.
Alright, now before we dive into those great creatures in this deck, I would just like to say please consider subscribing and leaving a like. It would mean the world to me. In addition, I just made a Patreon, and whether or not you want to support me, if you like my content and you want to support me and be involved in the content I make, please, I'd really appreciate it. Or if you just want to check out what I'm doing, this is the place where I'm going to be posting polls and trying to get listener information as to, what kind of videos I make next or what kind of questions you might have about Magic the Gathering in general. So if you would enjoy that, please consider doing so. But let's dive right in and look back at those creatures.
Looking back now at the creatures that we really love to see in this deck, we have some vehicle support ones with Canotep Spider, Miriam Herd Whisperer, and Scram Senior Edificer. Canotep Spider is 5 generic artifact creature spider with flying, Fabricator Claw Array. Whenever another non-token artifact creature or vehicle enters battlefield under control, draw a card. This is a great draw engine that's going to help us draw into even more cards. Miriam Herd Whisperer is green and a white legendary creature human druid with as long as it's your turn, mounts and vehicles you control have hexproof, and whenever a mount or vehicle you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, which is going to be even better. And then Scram Senior Edificer, 1 in a white legendary creature dwarf artificer with whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle card, draw a card. Very fun here. But I'd like to also show off some more survival cards because they're very powerful, especially in this deck, because that's what Rip wants to do. So we have Defiant Survivor, Kona Rescue Beastie, and Reluctant Role Model. Defiant Survivor here is 2 in a green creature human survivor with survival at the beginning of your second main phase. If Defiant Survivor is tapped, manifest Dread. Now, if you don't know what manifest Dread means, it basically means look at the top 2 cards of your library, you can put one of them face down and one of them into your graveyard, and then if that is a creature card, you may cast it or flip it over for its converted mana cost on a later turn. A very cool way to sneak some things into play. but Defiant Survivor is going to make us some creatures that we can use to crew additional vehicles. Kona Rescue Beastie, 3 and a green legendary creature Beast Survivor with survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Kona Rescue Beastie is tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. This is going to allow us to play some of our really big vehicles for free or cheat some of our other creatures into play. And then Reluctant Role Model, 1 and a white creature human survivor with survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Reluctant Role Model is tapped, put a flying, lifelink, or +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever Reluctant Role Model or another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters on top of one target creature. We can suit this up with a bunch of different kinds of counters, and if it would be removed, we can then move those onto something else, which I think is awesome. Some other great creatures that are really powerful in this deck are Birds of Paradise, Citadel, Hierophants, Amira, Soul of the Accord, Enduring Vitality, Fanatic of Ronis, Glimmer Seeker, Intrepid, Stable Master, Oron Frostfang, Ornery Tumblewag, Sithis the Viper's Fang, Savior the Small, Toski Bearer of Secrets, and Wily Duke, Aten Hero. Moving on, we're now going to be focusing on some really cool cards that we tap or convoke our own stuff out for some really good benefits. So, Centaur, Omen Reader, Devout, Invocation, and Glare of Subdual. Centaur Omen Reader is 3 and a green. Snow Creature Centaur Shaman from Future Sight. Very interesting card here, but as long as this is tapped, creature spells you cast cost 2 less to play. This really incentivizes us to tap it to one of our vehicles in order to play a bunch of creatures at a really nice discount. And this card's only going for 35 cents, so this is an insane card. I think works super well in this deck. Devote, Invocation, 6 and a white sorcery. Tap any number of untapped creatures you control, and put a 4/4 white angel creature token flying on the battlefield for each creature tapped this way. A very powerful card, but another very powerful one is Glare of Subdual. 2 green-white enchantment, tap an untapped creature you control, tap target artifact or creature. There are some times when I build decks where I find cards that are so unexpected and so powerful, I think, why haven't I ever played these before? And I can feel this definitely in these cards right here. There's not always a perfect match, but I think that these cards work so well that I would consider playing them in other decks just to see how powerful they are. Moving on, we have some great Convoke cards that are going to help tap down our creatures while giving us some additional benefit here, with Chant of Vitugazi, Sundering Vitae, and the Wandering Rescuer. Chant of Vitugazi is 6 white instant with Convoke, and prevent all damage you would be dealt by creatures this turn. You gain life equal to the damage prevented this way. A really great way to kind of flip the board. If someone's swinging all out at you, you can gain a ton of life and put yourself in a very different position. Sundering Vitae, 2 and a green instant with Convoke, destroy target artifact or enchantment. I think for a single green in tapping 2 creatures, this is perfect. Or just casting it for free, I guess. You don't even have to pay the green. But then the Wandering Rescuer, 3 white legendary creature, human, samurai, noble with flash and Convoke. This has double strike, and other tapped creatures you control have hexproof. This is going to give us some great protection, keeping it so our opponents can't deal with our creatures if we tap them down, which they're going to be tapped for most of the time. So I think that this is very, very good. Some other great Convoke and tap spells are Collective Effort, Coordinated Clobbering, Devouring Light, Jasper Sentinel, Carmetra's Favor, March of Multitudes, Nissa's Expedition, and Split Up. Lastly, of course, we have the cool stuff cards with Arachnogenesis, Armed and Armored, and Strength of the Harvest. Arachnogenesis, 2 and a green instant. You create X 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. There's 2 reasons I think Arachnogenesis is a really great fog, and it's because it gives you creatures that can block while preventing damage that can also take out your opponent's creatures. Now, you may not be making a ton of spiders, but if they have a small enough creature, you can still block with those spiders you're making, and those spiders may be able to take something out. Armed and Armored is 1 and a white instant. Vehicles you control become artifact creatures until end of turn. Choose a dwarf you control, attach any number of equipment you control to it. Now, we really only care about the first part, but at some point, this is a 2 mana, basically, game ender, allowing us to attack with all of our creatures without even having to crew them. And then Strength of the Harvest. It's one of the modular lands from Modern Horizons 3 with Haven of the Harvest, but Strength of the Harvest lets us enchant a creature creature. An enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each creature and or enchantment you control. We certainly are going to have a lot of creatures, especially when we crew all of our vehicles, which will then just power this card up even more. The rest of the good stuff here is Commander Sphere, Cultivate, Decanter of Endless Water, Dispatch, Mirari's Wake, Rampant Growth, Soul Ring, Spring Leaf Drum, Swords Plowshares, Thought Vessel, and Thran Dynamo. Of course, the land base is up to you. This is one of the cheaper decks that I've actually been able to build because a lot of vehicles are quite inexpensive. So this is a great deck where you could pump a ton of money into the land base, or if you already have a good number of Selesnya lands, this would be a great place to throw them.
And that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I put a lot of time. I think Rip is a pretty interesting commander. There's a lot of vehicles that you can kind of choose, whether you have different strategies. You may choose some different ones than I did, or you may play this as an entirely vehicle or creature deck. You know, you can choose one or the other. I did a little bit of both so that you can kind of see how that'll work. Leave some comments down below what you think. Are there certain creatures or vehicles I should add? I'd love to know about it. In addition, if you'd please leave a like, share this video with a friend, and subscribe, but that would mean the world to me, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Now today's Scryfall card of the day is Chimney Rabble. They're violent, headstrong, and wildly unpredictable. It should be amusing to see how Norrin's vaunted tactics try to cope with them. Urabrask. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.